Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I'd like to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm very glad that you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to say there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. You probably heard our next guest in October when we were playing Halloween music, and we shared her Good Times Goosebump Motel. Happy to have singer-songwriter and Grammy nominee Judy Pancoast back with us. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Ken. Thank you for having me. This is great. I love Sounds of Christmas. I'm very grateful for all of the music of mine that you play, even the Good Times Goosebumps Motel.
Yeah, that was on an album, Are We There Yet? And I just became aware of it in the last, 3-4 years, but it fits in with the Halloween music really nicely. So it's fun to.
There are some decorators who actually use it in their displays, their Halloween displays in October. So that's always fun.
I'm sure it is. And speaking of using music for Halloween decorations, I see videos more and more every year for your song, The House on Christmas Street, that people are using when they've got their lights and everything going. That must be a pretty cool feeling.
It's totally cool. And it is what has really put the song on the map. We found, actually, it was my husband who found the very first video in 2006, which was 8 years after I recorded the song. And he was just Googling names of my songs. And there was a video where you could drive up to a house and turn the radio on and hear music, and the lights went with the music, and it was playing The House on Christmas Street. And he quickly called me over, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And that year, as Christmas approached, there were more and more videos. And they led me to a website called Planet Christmas, where I introduced myself in the forums and got a great welcome from the folks there. And I was invited to their convention in 2007. And I went, and it was just wonderful. So yes, what I found out was about the world of Christmas decorators that most average people don't know about, is that they network. They have several sites that they network on. They're all over the world. Most of them are men. There are a few women, but most of them are men. And they talk about Christmas decorating 365 days a year. And they're a wonderful, wonderful community. And they have really, I get fan mail from people who say, I heard your song at my neighbor's house. And, can't get a lot of regular terrestrial radio stations to play it, but people's houses and internet radio stations are where you can hear The House on Christmas Street.
The House on Christmas Street, you've probably sung it hundreds, if not thousands of times. Do you remember the genesis of that song and where the inspiration came from and how you put it all together?
I absolutely do, Ken. I've never forgotten it. I was driving in the car with my husband, and I was talking about, I was excited because I was known as a children's musician, but I really wanted to do a Christmas album. It's always been my dream to do a Christmas album. So I said, I'll do a Christmas album for kids. And I was thinking about what songs I could write for this album about things that had never been done before. And I said, you know what? Everywhere that we have lived, and this was before people were synchronizing their lights to music. This was in 1998. I said, there's been that one house in the town. You ask somebody, where's the house that's big time decorated for Christmas? And everybody always knows where it is. And I said, but nobody has ever written a song about that house. And I'm going to write the song about that house. And then immediately the chorus came to mind. It just fell out of my mouth. And, I got home and I sat down at the piano and I figured out the chords, and the song practically wrote itself. And there are some lyrics in it that people think are funny, where I say, where we every year Thanksgiving Day while we digest our turkey. And I've often thought I should go back and change that. In fact, when I redid it in 2014, I did change it to enjoy our turkey. But I kind of like the quirky digest our turkey too. And at that point, I didn't realize that people spent months putting up their Christmas displays. So I said the family puts up its display. but they don't put it up. They just light it up on Thanksgiving. But yes, that was the exact moment. And still to this day, I don't know, Ken, you know more Christmas music than I do. Are there other songs out there about that house?
Nothing leaps to mind, and the handful that I can think of are more novelty kind of songs that are more based on the Griswolds and Christmas Vacation than
Right, right.
anything real.
Someone interviewing me once asked me what I thought about the song Taking Off when it was obviously written as, being sarcastic. That I was making fun of those houses. And I said, that you are nuts. I said, that song is written completely sincerely. I'm not being sarcastic at all. I love those houses. I love Santa Claus on the Roof. That's the thing I always looked for when I was a little girl. But this person interviewing me was one of those cynical people. I said, you got it all wrong, buddy. That song is about as sincere as it could possibly get.
I've listened to that song. I couldn't even tell you how many times, but lots of times. And not once did I ever think that it's sarcastic. I thought there are parts in it that are funny, and there are parts that are certainly relatable. And it's a house that I would want to go see. I might not want to live right across the street from it, but I would like to see it. But not once did I ever think that was being sarcastic. I thought it's...
Yeah, I was shocked. I don't know where this guy was coming from. I felt sorry for him, actually.
and you go through all the things that are in the yard and that are on the roof and everything, and nothing is done in a mean way. You're not making fun of anything. It's all stuff that's relatable. Bits and pieces of it are probably in people's lawns and around their houses on your street. It's just that it's all on at this one house. And I think it's wonderful, and it's so Christmassy.
Thank you.
It just is. But I never once thought that was sarcastic. That's interesting that somebody...
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That, because I was very surprised at him. And it's funny because since the decorators caught on to it, they contact me and they say, I've got everything but Santa on the roof, or they arrange their displays and they set up their programming so that each feature lights up as I sing about it. And I don't know, do you know about the house on, yes, you know about the House on Christmas Street tours that I've been on, right?
Yeah.
You know about those?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I can get out there and do it again if this COVID thing ever clears up. But going around the country from house to house and doing concerts on people's lawns and in their driveways and seeing their displays light up as I'm singing the House on Christmas Street, it's absolutely mind-boggling. I feel so privileged to have had this experience and meet all these wonderful people. I show up at their house and they're so happy to have me there, and they collect for a charity, and the lights are blinking and flashing. And of course I sing other songs, but the House on Christmas Street is the big finale. And they always set up their program to go exactly while I'm singing live. And it's amazing. One time I was 3 houses on a cul-de-sac, all shared the program, and it was crazy. They had the mega trees with the lights going around and around. I felt like I was in some sort of psychedelic dream, but it was incredible. I've had such great experiences, all thanks to these wonderful Christmas decorators. I can never thank them enough. It's been terrific.
And it has to be, without a doubt, the most unique Christmas tour that I've ever heard about, even. And I think it's terrific. And I know you, I didn't check today as we're getting ready to record this, and that's a shame on me. But I know you used to have some pictures on your website. Do you still have those up?
I think they're still there. I never took them down, so yes, they must be still there.
Okay.
But I have a blog. There's a blog that you can access. Every tour that I've been on, I've blogged. There have been times that I've gone back to my computer and literally fallen asleep in the hotel room, sitting at my computer, blogging about that night's experience. But yes, the blog is up, and you can see all all the blogs from all the tours that I've done. And my van, which when I finally retired, it had over 600,000 miles on it from driving all around the country from Christmas house to Christmas house. But now I have another Toyota, so I could still do it. I want to do it in 2022. I really want to. And it's amazing the generosity of people too, because I don't ask to get paid. I ask for them to put me up somewhere for the night. I don't stay in people's houses, which I'm sure anyone can understand. I'm a woman. I travel alone, and that they put me up. They have to publicize the concert, and I send them press releases and pictures and posters, and they have to collect for a charity. And it's just such a wonderful experience all the way around. It's amazing. I mean, people are so generous. And then usually what I do is before the tour, I do a fundraiser on my website where I ask people to donate enough money to pay for the gas and the tolls. And I've had people send me McDonald's gift cards, stuff like that to eat while I'm on the road. People are amazing. They want to support it. And that's a wonderful thing.
People are amazing, especially at this time of year. There's a great quote in the movie Scrooged near the end, the Bill Murray parody of A Christmas Carol, where he says how, at this time of year, we are the people that we always hoped we would be. And I think that's a wonderful sentiment, and it's so true. And it's, illustrated by what you just said. This has to be like 360 degrees. Well, no, that'd be all the way around. Okay, so 180 degrees from the house on Christmas Street. You actually performed for President Clinton twice. How did that happen?
Well, at the time, I was doing country music. I lived in Maine, and my father-in-law was a bigwig in the Democratic committee. So when President Clinton was coming to Maine, he was already president. I can't remember why he was there. Frankly, I don't remember, but he was already president. He wasn't running. And so my father-in-law arranged for us to perform. I had a band, and he arranged for us to perform in the park for the president during his big rally thing. So that was the first time. And then I got an email from the White House, not an email, an actual letter from the White House asking me to return when he was going to be at the Bath Iron Works in Maine, commissioning a ship. And we went back and we did it again in the rain. But it was wonderful. We performed some Elvis songs because President Clinton liked Elvis. So it wasn't like I was alone with him in his office,
Right. Right. And I didn't.
But it was pretty special to be invited back,
Oh, I'm sure. And I didn't bring this up because of the politics. I think it's just, it must be, I can't even think of the word on how great it must feel to be in that elite of a club of performers that have sung at the request of the sitting president of the United States. Wow. That's pretty cool.
Wow. I'm glad you brought it up because I haven't actually thought about it in a long time, but yeah, I guess it is. I haven't thought about that in a long time, but yeah, it is. It was pretty special. And I still think it was special, in spite of whatever people may think about that particular president.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and this is certainly not a political podcast, and I didn't bring it up for any other reason other than how cool it is to be asked by the sitting president of the United States to perform. That's terrific. Okay, back into the Christmas music. Christmas with Mrs. Claus. How did this sort of come to you? Do you remember that album?
I do. Yep. Well, it was a long time ago. I guess it was before I did the Christmas album, probably 1996, 1997. I got together with my local cable access station. This was when I lived in New Hampshire, and arranged to do a show called Christmas with Mrs. Claus. Because when I was a little girl growing up in Maine, there was a show that came on that was A Visit with Santa Claus. and it only came on the week before Christmas. So like 5 or 6 days leading up to Christmas, it would be on every day. And it would be like you were, through the magic of television, you were transported to the North Pole, and there was Santa Claus sitting in his North Pole home, and he would read letters from the kids. And so, and as a child, you really believe that. You believe that hook, line, and sinker.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so magical to me. So I decided I wanted to do a local show called Christmas with Mrs. Claus. And I got the whole get up, the wig, the whole deal. And we recorded actually 2 weeks worth of shows leading up to Christmas Eve. And the show that ran on Christmas Eve, I'd talk about how excited I was having, putting together the sleigh with Santa and all this stuff. And we got kids to write letters and the whole thing. I read stories. I read Christmas stories. I talked about Christmas trivia. We had a little section where I went to the elves workshop and there were elves there. And we always had, I got some kids to do little skits and it was really a lot of fun, really a lot of fun. We had one where they were making pizza. The elves were making pizza and they threw pizza up in the air, pizza dough up in the air. And then we actually got the local Santa's Village, which is a amusement park in the White Mountains of New Hampshire, allowed us to go up and film in their reindeer barn. So I did another character who was Clem, the reindeer wrangler. And I would have Mrs. Claus say, okay, now we're going to take you to the reindeer barn. And there I was Clem, and I was talking about the reindeer, and we had actual reindeer. It was really a lot of fun. So that was the genesis for the album, Christmas with Mrs. Claus. And I wanted it to be that when you put the album on, I already had the voice developed and everything, which I'm not going to do now because I don't want to ruin the magic of it. But the idea being, when you put that CD on, from the minute you hear her laughing, you're there in the North Pole. She opens the door and welcomes you in and says, I was just baking Christmas cookies and come on in. And I'm listening to music by my favorite singer, Judy Pancoast. And it's about an hour. I think it might be a minute or two short of an hour, where you listen to music, you dance with Mrs. Claus, some Christmas carolers come to the door. And at one point she sits down and she talks about the true meaning of Christmas. And then at the end, she says goodbye and you leave. And the whole idea is that you listen to it all in its entirety. And the imagination of a child, they're there with Mrs. Claus, and they could listen to it every night before they went to bed, or leading up to Christmas. I'm a kid at heart, and I love that sort of thing. And that's what I want. But now people don't buy CDs anymore, and it's all streaming. And I have maybe 25 copies of this CD left, and I'd really like to get them in the hands of kids who would have that experience. But a lot of people don't even have CD players anymore. I don't know what to do. What do you do?
I am such a believer in the magic of Christmas. I think the right people are going to hear this and are going to go to your website and get the CD, and it's going to be the kind of thing that gets passed down.
I
it's
hope
going to
so.
be it, because it is it. I don't want to keep using the word magic, but it is a magical kind of experience, and it's something that when you grow up with that, you want to share that magic with your kids, and your kids are going to want to share it with theirs. So it is the kind of thing that you can pass down. And if you're listening to this podcast and you think that that's the kind of thing that you want, that's the kind of tradition, this is for you, and you're probably the person that I'm talking about. And you should go get this CD. Judy's website, judypancoast.com. It's Judy Pancoast.com. The store that you have, you used to call it the Tune Store. Is that still, or the Tune Room?
It says Judy's Groovy Stuff is
right.
It's the link. We never changed it. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, because I used to have a band. I had a children's music band, and they were called the Groovy Dudes. So I kind of went for this whole 60s thing, but we never changed it. So yeah, I've been through a lot of evolutions over my music career.
It's interesting that you say that, because even though you have, one of the things that I know that has remained constant, at least as long as I've known you, has been the inspiration you get from and your love of the Carpenters.
Oh, yes, definitely. Wow. I didn't think that was what you were going to say. Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes. Yep.
I know that you have put together shows that are tribute shows where you perform the music of the Carpenters. I have not heard you do their Christmas stuff. Is that something that you have intentionally not done, or have I just missed it?
You missed it last year. I did do a live Facebook concert on the Carpenters 50th anniversary page where I sang the songs from the Christmas albums. And I do in my cabaret show, which is my favorite iteration of my Carpenters concerts. I do Merry Christmas, Darling. Do you mind if I tell you about the cabaret show?
No, not
Because
at all.
I'm really quite proud. Okay. Well, I started out with a band doing a Carpenters tribute, but when people hear tribute these days, they always think it's going to be a look-alike, sound-alike. And I didn't want to do that. Really didn't want to do that. So my friend, who's my music director, is very much into the cabaret style thing. I knew nothing about it. And he said, it's a place where you can tell stories. So what the Carpenters cabaret show is called All My Best Memories. It's a line from Yesterday Once More. And in it, I tell my story of growing up in Maine, how I discovered the music of the Carpenters in 1970. And I was 11 years old, and how I became their number one fan in Maine, how I got backstage to see them at a concert, which is kind of an amazing story. Even when I look back on it, I go, what the heck did I do? I actually got backstage at a concert to have a private audience with Karen and Richard Carpenter.
Wow.
And through it, it's threaded with the songs, and the songs tie into my story. For example, I talk about meeting them, and then I talk about how after they left, I felt like I had touched greatness, but they were gone their way, and I'm stuck in Maine, and I want to be a singer-songwriter, and I have no idea how to do that. And I actually went into a depression because they were gone. They and all their magic were gone, and now I'm here, and I have no idea what to do. And that's when I sing Superstar. So it kind of ties into the, come back, you're a star. It's not exactly right, but it works when I sing it. I love doing this show. I don't have it booked anywhere right now, so I got to get busy on that. Now you're making me think about it. Because of the pandemic, everything stopped, everything just stopped.
And I can't help but ask this. Have you thought about recording Carpenter's songs, specifically, of course, the Christmas songs?
I have, but I will never do it because my voice is nothing. I mean, people say you sound like Karen Carpenter, but there is some, because of the influence and because she was an alto, I'm an alto, there's some that's the same, but really, when you have perfection, why would you want to redo it? I would rather, I don't want to listen to somebody else singing. I think my cabaret show is different because it tells a story. And I think anyone in a fandom can relate to my story about how much the music meant to me. So whether your fandom is the Carpenters or anything else, you can relate to my show. And so when I sing the songs, I'm not singing them better than Karen. I'm singing them as Judy singing them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But I think if I wanted to listen to Carpenter's Christmas music, I'd listen to it by the Carpenters. I wouldn't listen to it by anybody else. You know what I mean? So that's why I haven't done that. Karen Carpenter, come on. She was more of a
Yes, she was.
Yep.
And really, it's not Christmas for me until I hear Karen telling me that the greeting cards have all been sent.
I know, me too. I know. Although for me, for a long time, it's been the album, their first Christmas album when she goes, frosted window panes. When she does that, that's Christmas.
Yeah. After Christmas with Mrs. Claus, and it wasn't right after, but The House on Christmas Street back in the spotlight because you wrote a book called The House on Christmas Street.
Yes. In 2018.
Your first novel.
Ken, do you want to know how that came about? The real honest story?
Yeah.
I have been trying for years and years to get regular terrestrial radio stations to play The House on Christmas Street. And there are only a handful that do. I just can't get it. And I've thought for every year at Christmas, I think, what can I do? How can I, but every year I get the same answer. So thank God for you, because you played it right away, but I get the same answer. Our audience wants to hear the same old songs, basically is what they say to me. Well, then how does a new Christmas song break through? So I've thought of all kinds of shenanigans to try to get that to happen. And one was, I thought, you know what, if I could have a Hallmark Christmas movie, maybe then the song would be a hit. Like, I believe The Christmas Shoes, that song came from a Hallmark Christmas movie with Rob Lowe. So I thought, okay. So I said, well, how can I do that? I need to write a story. So I wrote a book, and it was years in the making, years. I had it edited by, I hired a writing coach because I was not an English major in college. I was a music major. I hired a writing coach who went through every chapter and helped me figure out what I was doing and everything. And you know what? I'm very pleased with the way it came out. I ended up having it self-published. So I paid for every copy because it was very hard to get a publisher or an agent. And a writer friend that I respect said, you know what? You already have a ready-made audience of people who like your music. So why don't you just self-publish it? And then those people will probably want to read it. So I did. And with that, I've also sold out of I had 400 copies made. I've sold out. I have 30 left. So just 30. And then and it's also available as an ebook. But right now it's not on Amazon. The ebook is on Amazon, but it's not on Barnes and Noble. The book itself, you can only get from me. The paperback book, you can only get from me. But I'm very pleased with the way the story came out. In fact, it's not, I did submit it to Hallmark, and they said it's not enough of a love story. But it is a love story. In fact, there are 3 different love stories in it. There's the older couple who are in their 70s. It's their love story. Then there's a couple who get together who are in their 30s. And then there's a teenage couple. So there's love story all through this thing. But basically, it's about this man who moves from Florida to Maine and puts up his huge giant light show that was an award-winning light show in Florida. But he happens to put it up across the street from a very unhappy old lady who has been she's sad about growing old. At first she was just a stereotypical Grinch, but I wanted to give her depth. I wanted people to understand why she's sad. And the older I get, the more I understand. She feels useless. She's retired school teacher. She has nothing to do. Her children are grown up. Her grandchildren are grown up. And, and the new great grandchild doesn't need her because has her own grandmother. And so she feels useless. So when this guy starts putting up his mega Christmas display, it gives her something to focus all that anxiety and misery on. And she decides she's going to shut him down. And how it brings the neighborhood together, their battle, is the theme of the book. And, I had an author friend of mine who's a very well-established author who read it, and he said, I don't understand why this isn't published by a major publisher, because it's really good. But again, it's hard. So I did my own CDs. Now I've done my own book.
Well, you've done your own book and you've done your own play, Girl on the Moon.
Oh, well, yes, I'm actually working on my 3rd musical right now. It's and this is a funny sort of Christmas related story. My author friend Rick Howdala, who lived in Maine, I found out on Facebook that he was friends with an author I absolutely adored named Joe Lansdale. And I saw on Rick's Facebook page, this was 6 years ago, that Rick had posted on his page that Joe Lansdale was having a movie made of his story. Get this, Ken, Christmas with the Dead, a Christmas zombie story. And I said, oh my God, it's horror, which I love, and it's Christmas, which I love. I need to get a song on the soundtrack of this movie. So I went to the website for the movie, and there was a place where you could write a letter to Santa. So I tell everybody that my whole career right now is based on writing a letter to Santa, because I wrote to Santa and I said, Dear Santa, I am a writer of Christmas music and Grammy nominated, and my dream, and I'm a huge fan of Joe Lansdale, my dream is to have a song on the soundtrack of this movie. Well, long story short, I ended up with 3 songs on the soundtrack. And then Joe asked me to adapt the story as a stage musical. And I knew nothing about doing that. I immersed myself in books and podcasts and everything I could find on the internet about writing a musical. And over the course of 4 years, I wrote a musical based on Christmas with the Dead. And we had a staged reading of it in New Hampshire just before the pandemic. It was going to go up for a full production just before the pandemic. And then the pandemic shut everything down. In the meantime, I went back and worked on an idea that I had had for a middle school musical, and that's Girl on the Moon. And that is actually out there now and being produced at a couple of different middle schools. And now I'm working on my third musical. But Christmas with the Dead is still, we're in the process of trying to find a producer in New York to put it up. So that's what's happening with that now.
And then to kind of go full circle and back to Maine, Christmastime in Maine is just out, a song that you did with Kevin Scott Hall.
Yes, and that came through the cabaret world. I was doing my Carpenters cabaret show in New York and was introduced to Kevin several years ago, and we kept in touch, and he contacted me. It was a year ago, and I'm so ashamed of that. It was actually a year ago in October, and said, listen, I've got this Christmas song, and here's the chorus. I have all the lyrics written. Would you be interested in working on it with me? And I listened to it and I said, oh, I really like this. Yes, I'd like to work on this with you. And then it sat there for a year until this past fall when now, but a couple of months ago, when I took it out and I said, you know what, it's time to get this finished. So I worked on it, and then he came over and we worked on it together, and he asked me if I'd like to sing the duet with him. And that's how this came about. Both of us having been born and bred in Maine. And it was a big surprise for me. I never expected that I would be releasing a Christmas song this year, but I like it. I love it. I think that when people listen to it, especially folks from Maine, they'll be transported to Christmas in Maine. Kevin did a wonderful job on the lyrics. It's beautiful.
And I can't remember.
So that's how that came about.
I can't remember if you had mentioned this to me or if Kevin did, that there might be a Christmas album from the two of you. Is that right?
Yeah, we've talked about it. That might be a project for the coming year, because I know I have 2 Christmas songs that I haven't recorded yet that I would like to put out there, and Kevin's got some. So yeah, it would be a Christmas album with some duets and some songs from each of us. But we're just in the talking stages. That'll be something to explore in January after the craziness of the season has passed by. So I hope everybody likes the song. I mean, if everybody likes the song, that will be the impetus to do the album.
You know, it's funny, and I probably mention this to every guest that I have on the podcast who does music, is that most people who aren't in some shape or form of the music business don't get how long it takes, how much goes into the creation of a Christmas single or a Christmas album. And, you're talking about getting together with Kevin and talking in January for a Christmas album that might come out next Christmas, but it takes that long. It takes so much, so much has to go into it.
I've had albums that have taken more than a year. Christmas with Mrs. Claus was at least 2 years in the making, because it's not just the writing the songs, the recording the songs, all of that stuff. You have to have an arranger, somebody who puts all the instruments together. But it's also for independent artists like us, it's money. You have to pay for all these things out of your own pocket. So sometimes I've, said, okay, I have a couple thousand, I'm going to go do a song. And then when I get a couple thousand more, I'll go do another song. And, it all turns into an album.
And in the meantime, you have to do something else to keep the lights on, keep food in the fridge, all of that kind of stuff. Right. So it's not like you're just churning out one Christmas song after another. It all takes time.
It used to be when CDs. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is, I did my first album as a children's artist, and the proceeds, I borrowed the money from my sister to make that. It was under $1,000 for the whole album. That was in 1996. And then the proceeds from that, every dollar went right back to my sister, the money that I borrowed from her. And then the proceeds from that went into making the second album. I made 2 albums in 2 years because the first one sold so well. And that was my model. The proceeds from every recording would go into making the next recording until Christmas with Mrs. Claus. And shortly after that, people started streaming and CD sales tanked. And that's why it's been 10 years now since I've recorded an album, which makes me really sad. Or actually, no, that came out in 2013. So it's been 8 years since I've recorded an album.
And that's something else I think that most people don't realize, because Spotify and Amazon Music and so many of these other services have become so popular that you can stream without having to buy the song. And on the one hand, as a listener, great, that's nice. But if you really want to support the artist, I mean, I don't know the numbers and the money, and it's really none of my business. But it seems like if I were to stream The House on Christmas Street right now, maybe you would get a tenth of a penny. Maybe.
I get 0.00001 cent.
Okay, so even less
every
than
time
that.
a song is streamed.
Yeah.
Yes, it's sad.
So
every couple months I get like a $20 check.
Yeah, and you could have thousands. I was talking to somebody, another independent artist last night, and he said that he can't remember what exactly the numbers were, but if he gets 5,000 streams, people think that's great. And he says, and I might have enough out of that to put a gallon of gas in my car, maybe.
But it's really been hard on artists.
Yeah.
So the model changed. It became, okay, we have to now make our money by live performances. And then when COVID hit, that all dried up. So I've often said recently, if I didn't have a husband, I'd be a bag lady. Because all of my income dried up, And I'm not whining. This is the life I've chosen. So I'm working hard to try to get things back on track, And
that's why I always like to tell people when I do these podcasts with an artist is that the best way that you can support them is to go to their website and buy their stuff. Buy it directly from them.
Right.
Buy their CDs, buy their T-shirts and whatever other merch they have, buy their books. And those are great ways to support an artist that you like. I'm not trying to make everybody who listens to this go to Judy's website and give her money, although that would be okay. But really, especially at this time of year, there is so much new music. I probably get close to around 1,000 Christmas songs sent to me between now and Christmas Day. But I get so many. And I know people who love Christmas music can easily get overwhelmed by how much there is. So pick out a few that you really like and buy them and help support those whose art you really love. And it makes a difference. And that's the end of my pitch. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, thank you. And just like supporting Sounds of Christmas, if you love Sounds of Christmas radio, you can also go to the website and support Sounds of Christmas.
Yes. That's true too. Sounds of Christmas has never been it's not a job, although this time of year it takes 80 hours a week to do it, but it's not a job. It's something that I do because I love the music, and I have a limited amount of advertising that pretty much pays to keep it running. It's not a big money maker. It wasn't designed to be a big money maker. I like to support. I love all the Christmas music, and I like to be able to introduce it to other people. That's why I started this podcast, to introduce some of the artists whose names you may not know, but whose songs you probably have heard on the Sounds of Christmas, like Judy, and help build some awareness and hopefully keep the Christmas music coming.
Keep it coming.
Yes, absolutely. Judy,
hopefully a new album next year. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'll keep my fingers crossed for that. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, you can go to my website and you can message me there. You can go to my Facebook page, which is judypancoastmusic.com. So it's Facebook, facebook.com/Judy, just type in Judy Pancoast Music and it will bring you to my professional page. I'm on Twitter, but usually on Twitter, I'm there talking about horror movies. But I think my Facebook page is probably the best way. I update it, just about every day. So if you want to connect with me, you can connect with me there, or you can just email me at judy@judypancoast.com.
Judy, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for spending time with us on the podcast today.
Ken, you're the best. You have supported my music from the word go. Thank you, Ken.
And thank you so much for listening, helping us share some Christmas spirit, and for helping this podcast continue to grow. Since you're listening now, you obviously found us somewhere. But if there's another site you like to use for podcasts, check out our podcast page on our website for the complete list of everywhere you can listen to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. And again, the website is soundsofchristmas.com. Then just click on the podcast tab. For the Sounds of Christmas station, to listen to the music, you'll need to stick with our website or our app in the Google Play Store. If you have comments or suggestions, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through our website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.